In this video, we're going to look at some statement FAQs. So review some patient statement frequently asked questions. That's the agenda for this video. The items we're going to discuss on this video is how you can exclude patient or a claim from statements. Can the statement count be refreshed? Can the statement billed to be a guarantor instead of the patient? Or how you would do that? How to add an installment plan for patient and generate an installment letter. So let's look at these items. So the first item we're going to look at is how to exclude a patient from statements. So if you need to exclude a patient from statements, you can go to the patient and we'll open that patient up. So we'll open up the patient search screen, and I will just open a patient's account, search and open the patient's account. On the left hand side, you can see there's an other attributes, and if you click on the other attributes on the patient screen, it brings up a screen where you can enter some additional patient information. Now at the bottom of the screen, you can see there's a checkbox, do not send statements. When you check this box and save it, this patient will not come up for the statement generation. So I'll hit save here. So that statement patient has been added to the do not send list. Now, and if this patient has any balance, when you generate the statement, this patient will be excluded. All the patient's lines will be excluded from the statement generation list. Now, at any point of time, if you want to look at which all patients you have with the exclusion, you can go to Report Central. And in the Report Central, you can go to report number C6, which is a patient details report, and check this box, show patient exempt from sending statement, and hit search, and it'll show me the patients that are exempted. So there are 2 patients that are exempted in my system, and you can see this is a patient that I just put the check on. So anytime you want to look at a list of patients who have the exempt or the exclusion checked, you can come to this list report, look at it, and if you want to move them back into where the statements need to be generated, you can check, go back and remove that check or clear that check to have the patients return to the statement cycle. Now, if it's a particular line that you or a claim that you want to exclude from the statement run, just put that claim or line to the hold status. So that's the only workaround possible at this time. So you just put it to a hold status, and that way you can exclude that patient's claim or a particular line from coming up on the statement generation list. The next question is regarding the statement count, and we'll just go to the statement generation screen, which is to generate patient statement. You can see there is a statement count between, which is every time a statement is generated for a patient, it captures a statement count. So the first time you generate a statement, the system captures it as statement count 1. And the second time you do for the patient, it'll capture it as 2. So every time a statement is generated, it captures a statement count. Now the question is whether you can refresh the statement count on a patient. Let's say you generated the statement count, generated the state patient, and the count is 1 or 2 or or maybe even more times you might have generated. Now, would you be able to refresh the statement count? The answer to that is no. So at this time, there's no way to refresh that count. But we do have an enhancement coming very soon that allows you to refresh it. And so just watch out for that update that comes in the system. But at this time, you don't have a way to refresh the statement count. Once that feature is available, it would be on the charge master or the edit charge screen is where you would be able to go and refresh that patient's statement count. And that should be available very soon in the system. The next item I'm going to show you is how can you have the statement sent to a guarantor. Now, the system would automatically send a statement to or automatically create a guarantor as the patient itself if the patient's age is over 16 years old. But if you want to change that logic to or change the age, that is, so if you want to set it not to 16 years but you want to maybe make it 17 years or change the age there, the place that you can set that up is if you go under the setup and practice. Under the practice, there's on the top right hand side there's a set practice option, and on the general tab here you have a field which is minor patients age less than 16 is the default is requires an adult as a guarantor. Now you can change this age if you need. You can change this to whatever age that you need to set here. So once that is done, the system will look to see the age, and if the age is over whatever is entered here, that's when it adds that patient as a self-guarantor. Now, if the patient is added as a self-guarantor, but you still need the statement to go to another guarantor, or it could be also a child whom you need the statement to go to their parent, and that parent should be added as a guarantor, you want to make sure that the parent is added in the guarantor list. So you go to the guarantor here on the patient screen. You want to make sure that parent is added in the guarantor list, or it could also be an organization as in this patient. So you want to add that guarantor there. Now once a guarantor is added, there's one more step you have to make sure that the statements will have that guarantor. That step is to go to the case, and in the case, whichever case is being used for the patient, you want to make sure that the guarantor in there is, or the guarantor selected on the case is the guarantor that you want the statements to go to. So that's the second step. You have to make sure that both of them is done. First, you need to add the guarantor, and secondly, you need to come to this case or any open cases. You need to make sure that you have the guarantor selected as that particular person or the organization that you want it sent to. Once you have selected that, hit save, and if you regenerate the statement or generate the statement, you would see that the guarantor that is selected here is the one that's going to come up on the statement in the build tool. The next item we're going to look at is how you can add an installment plan for a patient and generate an installment letter. So I'm going to just open a date of service here. Let's try this date of service. So I'll just click on this date of service to open up the edit charge screen. So it opens up the edit charge. Now once it opens up the edit charge screen for you, let's say you have a balance for this patient which you want to put it as an installment. so which is equated monthly payment plan. So what you can do here is that once you have the patient opened, on the patient tab there is an installment plan option. So you click on the installment plan, and once you click on it, you can see it shows the patient's balances. My patient here has a huge balance, and there's a lot of bill to patient lines. And here you can select which one you want to move to um, the installment plan. You can select single or multiple. Now once you have selected those, lines, you can then set when do you want this installment plan to start. So once you have selected the installment, once you have selected them, you can then select when it has to start, how many months you want this installment plan to be for. So I've said 3 months, and then you can hit this save to have the installment plan added for this patient. So once I hit the save, that installment plan will be added. So you'll have to put the start date and hit the save to have the installment plan added. Once the installment plan is added for this patient, and you can see that the system automatically calculated based on how many months that you enter, whether it's 2 months or 3 months, the system will calculate what each month's installment amount is. So there you have, so I've entered 3 months, so when I save, that installment plan gets added for this patient. Now once the installment plan is added, no longer would a statement generate for this patient, but instead an installment letter. So if you go to the statement generation screen, and I'll just open up the statement generation screen. You see there is a generate installment letter here. So you can select an installment letter which is added and hit the generate installment letter to have an installment letter created. So please note, as I mentioned, once a patient is added to an installment plan, the system does not generate a statement for them, or you cannot generate a statement for them. You would have to generate an installment letter for any dates or date of services that have been added to the installment plan. Now, as far as adding the installment letter goes, you can add an installment letter from the advanced setup letter master. This is where the installment letter is. You would see the template for it is, and where you can make changes to the template. So you can go right here and look for an installment letter, and this is the installment. So you can click here and look for the installment letter. Once the installment letter loads, you can make any changes to the letter. Now always you can also add new installment letters. You can have multiple installment letters, or you can add new installment letter by clicking on the plus on the top right hand side here, and then adding giving a letter name and putting the content in and hitting save. You can always use the tags. There are all these tags that you can use for the installment letter. And the only thing is, when you're adding the installment letter, the group code has to be installment. So just make sure it is in uppercase and it has the word installment, just as we saw for this previous letter that we try to pull here. It had the installment as the group code. So just make sure you have that installment itself as the group code. So you can add an installment letter into the master, and once you're added it, you can generate a installment letter for the patient from the generate patient statement screen. So you would be able to see that installment letter in here, in the drop down, and you can generate it from there. So that was all about patient statement generation FAQs.